What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and here we are with what I think is another really cool data set that I'm hoping you all enjoy and we can continue to talk about here on this channel. Now, on Friday, we looked at the cards that had been moving the most on TCG Player, and we specifically, kind of filtered it out. We wanted to see cards that were moving with a relatively high velocity, right? So they had to have more than 5 sales. We wanted to make sure they were in near mint condition, so we filtered by that, and we wanted to make sure they had a jumping off point of over $20. However, TCG also sends out another data set, which I've recently found and I've been watching over the last couple months and I think is really cool, and I now want to do some content on it, only if you guys enjoy it, but I think you will. And they call it the biggest Pokemon movers and shakers of the week, and I think this could be really, really impactful. And now that I've seen it for the last couple weeks, I really think that it's information that's worth sharing, because everybody talks about price movements, and yes, price movements are really important, but this speaks about a lot of the liquidity of cards and how they've been moving and how the price sales and the number of sales, the velocity of sales has an impact on price, and all kinds of cool stuff besides just sitting here and saying, hey, this card went from $10 to $15, so it's up 50% over the last couple weeks. Now, I think that's really important. Obviously, we do a ton of data dives on this channel. Obviously, I think keeping our finger on the pulse of price movements gives us the opportunity to make really opportunistic buys and to understand what's going on in the market so we can play chess when everybody else plays checkers. But looking at stuff like this just gives us another view. And again, the more different angles you can get on the hobby as a whole, I think the better collector, investor all of us can be in this amazing hobby that is Pokemon cards. So with that being said, you got to give me your feedback on this content. This is the first time I've done this, and again, I do this for you. I will always look at this information, but if you guys find value in it, I promise I will keep doing some more data dives on this and I will keep bringing it to you. So let me know in the comments down below. And while you're at it, if you like it, give it a thumbs up. And as always, if you want to see more data-driven approaches like this, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We do stuff like this all the time, and I just think we have a ton of fun on the channel, and we would love to have you along for the ride. So with that out of the way, let's look at the very first stuff. Now, I thought this was an interesting card to start off with because the Carmine card, right? Obviously, this is the big Chase Trainer card from Twilight Masquerade, and Twilight Masquerade has absolutely come out like just hair on fire. It's absolutely crazy. The Greninja's through the roof, right? The Eevee has recently been taken off. We're going to look at that here in a minute. And the Carmine card kind of came out hot, but then it's really kind of not flattened out, but it's just kind of baselined here for a little bit. And we don't traditionally see that when a card comes out. Recently, what we've been seeing is they either pop off up into the right or they dramatically drop. There's usually nothing in between, but I think it's really interesting that this card came out and it started to hold steady. But what you see there at the very end, so the blue bar graph there at the bottom represents the number of sales on TCG Player. So you will see when it first came out around the 526 time frame, the bar is really high. There was like 10, 15 sales per day, right? This thing was selling with a high velocity, kind of worked its way down, and then you'll see from 6.4 to 622, the number of sales were relatively steady, but then it started to drop off, and most notably over the last couple of days, the sales of this have really started to drop off, which is again what we typically see. A new set comes out, it gets ripped through the roof, and then the demand starts meeting the supply, and then all of a sudden the prices start to drop. So you see this type of relationship right here. Prices starting to come down, sales are starting to come down, which is what one would expect. And again, there's nothing against this card. This card is absolute fire. I love everything about it. I love the artwork on this. I think there will be another time when trainers get that big time in the sun like they had not long ago, and we'll see some of these cards really start to jump in value. I mean, if you look back at the Sun and Moon era, there are some of the most expensive cards from the entire Sun and Moon era are really awesome trainer cards. Now, I know we're talking about a different era, different print runs, right? Like it was just a totally different thing. Pokemon collecting has fundamentally changed since then, but I do think we have some awesome artwork that's going to be worthy of some great prices further down the road. So looking at the other end of the spectrum, we said we were going to talk about the Eevee, so let's talk about the Eevee. Again, it came out, and as you would expect, around that 526 time frame, volume was really high. That blue bar graph is super high. People were buying it, people were getting their fill. But if you look really from 526 all the way to 7.1, it didn't decrease. I mean, it was still selling at almost 20 cards per day. That is a very, very strong volume. That is a very, very strong throughput, right? And then look what happens around the 710 mark, right when the price goes up. Look what happens. The sales start to go back up, volume starts to go back up, velocity starts to go back up, and so the price goes back up. I'm not telling you all anything you don't already know. You all are leveled up Pokemon collectors and investors, and you see this, but when we see cards like Eevee that are popping up out of left field, like it's not anything magic that's happening, it's because people are falling in love and people are buying it. If we ever want the price to come back down, we got to stop buying it at these prices, because then the volume of sales will go back down and the price will come back down. It's just how all free markets work, and it's really, really cool. Now, I've got nothing against this Eevee card. I think the art artwork is absolutely awesome. I will tell you, I'm certainly not going to spend 70 or 80 bucks on it right now. I am totally willing to wait this one out and see if it comes back down. But if it does get back down in that 30, 40, I don't know, maybe even you can talk me in it at $50. We'll just have to see range in maybe 6 or 7 months. Maybe I'd pull the trigger on it, but it is really awesome to look at it this way. And that is why I love this information that TCG Player provides in these movers and shakers. So really cool to look at Twilight Masquerade, really look to see at how the volume that is being sold results in the price movements as well. Next card right here, this Darkrai. So it might not be a card you would expect to see on a video like this. So when you look at the 1-year price graph, it's not overly impressive. It started off at about $140. And again, not a lot of velocity because you see these real sharp movements in the prices. Like a real sharp movement up is because it hasn't sold in a while, and then one maybe sold for $145. So the new market price shoots up to $145, right? Then it sells for $148 a couple weeks later, and it pops up to $148, and it kind of stair steps its way up. When I see graphs like this, it just lets me know that there's not a lot of volume in it. But one of the interesting things that the content called out when it was talking about the movers and shakers specifically for this card was, hey, listen, it is up $20 over the last year, but if you look at what's available on TCG Player right now, there are no more reasonably priced near mint copies. There is only one near mint copy on TCG Player right now, and that is going for $2,000. Now, I don't think anybody's going to pull the trigger and buy it at $2,000, but again, if you want to buy this card at market price, the best you can get is that lightly played version right there for $150. And again, this is it. There's only 5 of these for sale on TCG Player. So it was really interesting in the article how they talked about, okay, showing a short supply, right? There's not a lot of these for sale. Now, of course, you can go to eBay or other markets to try and buy this, but on TCG Player, there's not a lot of them. And this is what we see at times when people attempt to do buyouts. Now, this card obviously wasn't the product of a buyout, but hey, if there's 20 cards that are available on TCG Player, somebody might go and buy all 20 of them and then relist them for sale to try and reset a market price. So we see that sometimes. We see some manipulation in TCG Player. Not a fan of it, but it's just part of the game, and I guess a lot of people do it, and obviously some people sell them and buy them because I see it happen all the time. But I thought that was a really cool call out on this card, and I think it just kind of gave me a different perspective when I'm looking at TCG Player. It's not just to look at the prices and the graphs, but it's really cool to look and see how many of the cards are actually available for sale. Now, the next one right here that it talked about, again, it has to do with the velocity, is this Charizard from Celebrations. And up until this video, I didn't plan on doing a lot of content around Celebrations moving forward, but I think since we have some more, I don't know, some more sets that are going to come back and they're going to reference older sets again, you know, we're going to have some throwback sets. It might be worth it to do a relook on Celebrations, and I think I might do that because Celebrations could have been an absolutely awesome set, but I do think that because of when it was launched in the middle of the pandemic pump, or right on the back end of the pandemic pump, right, it was printed into oblivion, and this poor Charizard card never really had the chance to gain its traction. So you'll see at the beginning of the year, it was all the way up at $90, and it has just slowly stair-stepped its way all the way down. Now, it tried a little bit of a rally, but guess what? It didn't last very long, and it dropped right back down to $65. Now it's made its way back up to $70, but this card I think is going to flatline right in the $60, $70 range. It is selling with some velocity, but this has been a card that has been consistently on its way down for the entirety of this year. Now, as Celebration starts to become a little rarer, I don't know if a lot of people are going to be opening or not into the future. I don't know if the population will eventually start to dry up. There's a lot of I don't knows about Celebrations. I'll tell you, I'm sitting on a decent amount of it. Not a ton, you know, but I've got a decent amount sitting in the old Poke closet. So it'll be interesting to see, but I certainly don't think I'm expecting any huge returns from Celebration products further into the future, and I do think I'll do a video on that here in the next couple weeks or so. The next card that I thought was really cool was this card. Now, they featured this, and again, I've been talking a lot about some Eeveelutions here on the channel, and I just got done pulling together, you know, every month we look at Sword and Shield month-over-month performance, we look at Scarlet and Violet's month-over-month performance, we look at Sun and Moon's month-over-month performance, and I'm telling you, pretty much across the board, these Eeveelutions have been catching fire. It is absolutely crazy. So to see this Gardevoir and Sylveon card on this list did not surprise me one bit. Now, what was interesting to me was it kind of went through the period of the pop, right? Like where everybody got super excited about it. We saw it pop up, but then it's starting to work its way back down. But even though it's coming down off that high, look at it. It is still holding way, way above its previous one-year high. So you see it started the year off at about $17. Even with the pump and even with the drop, you see it starting to flat out there. It is holding at $23. I've taken a lot of lessons about what has been going on in a lot of these cards here as And Scarlet and Violet has really started to mature, and his Sword and Shield has started to kind of sunset. So it was really cool to see this Sylveon and this Gardevoir card. It was on the list because it saw so much volume on the way up, but it was stayed on the list because it saw such a decline in volume all the way down. So again, a $23 card. The artwork is stunning. I absolutely love this card. $23. You can do a lot worse than $23 than picking up this card right here. And then the final one that was on the list, and this one was really interesting to me, and the only reason I have this on here is because if you looked at the content from the previous week when they sent this out, they had another base set card on here, and it was really interesting because the talk track around this was, okay, listen, we all know that the 1999 set in almost all varieties went absolutely insane during the pandemic from a pricing standpoint. People were paying ridiculous amounts of money for the original series here in the Pokemon space, okay? But they've been working their way down for quite a while, and the video was saying, or the article was talking about, hey, listen, we might have found some support lines. I'll never use the word we found the bottom, right? Because we'll never know where the true bottom is. We can try and get dumb lucky, we can try and guess all we want to, but the odds of us understanding when we hit a true bottom is infinitesimal. But we do think, or at least the article suggested, that we could be starting to see a little bit of a trend reversal. We might start seeing some of these older cards trend up a little bit. And a week ago, they saw some of the 1999 set beyond the big Charizard, right beyond the big Holo cards, starting to make a trend up. And again, 2 weeks in a row, they're starting to see that again. Now, we need a lot more than 2 weeks worth of trends in order for us to put a flag in the sand and say, hey, things are turning around. But guess what? 2 weeks is better than nothing. I am extremely bullish on the OG, like the original era of Pokemon cards. I think they are super slept on right now. I think that when we're looking back 10, 15, 20 years from now, I think that these cards are an absolute golden space to be picked up right now. Especially, I love that Shadowless set. I've said it a million times over. And again, any of those first edition sets, I think there's some really awesome cards that you can pick up for reasonable prices. So I was excited to see that this one was starting to gain some momentum. So that's it. I will start doing this video weekly or bi-weekly or however often I get the information, as long as you all like it and as long as you think there's value in the content. For me, I think it's super impactful, but it doesn't matter what I think. All that matters is what you think. So if you enjoyed the content, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below. And as always, if you made it to the end of the video and you thought it was pretty cool, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I appreciate you more than I can say. I hope you have an epic one. I'll talk to you later. See you, everybody. Bye.